With this ongoing conflict, though, in Israel and the Netanyahu government, I guess the question goes then, do they go from here to sanctioning Netanyahu himself?
Well, how can he be left out of it?
This right coalition, because he's been criticised by his predecessors, Ehud Olmert, who wasn't a Labor Prime Minister. He was a former member of Likud, and others who have been very critical internally in Israel of Netanyahu.
Well, these ministers support his government, right? His government would be extremely fragile without them, and we've seen that before, and they've had their own fallings out. So how can you separate the leader of the government from his ministers on this and just say, well, no, we're just targeting this part and not the rest? As I say, you're opening a very, very wide door now, and it does have consequences. All your actions have consequences. So I can't see how this isn't raised with the United States. And by the way, has the Australian government had a look at the things that Marco Rubio have said in the past, that the US ambassador to Israel, Huckabee, has said in the past, and Donald Trump himself? If you're talking about inciting violence or the things that you say being a problem, what about the whole, we're going to make the Gaza Strip into a Riviera and we're going to move the population out, which is, I think, along the same lines as being suggested by these two men.
Then it does set up another awkward point ahead of the Albanese-Trump meeting, as if you needed another one.
No, and you just wouldn't want, Anthony Albanese does not want to be caught in a circumstance where he has an open-ended conversation in front of an open mic with Donald Trump, because that could go anywhere. And there are now lots of points of differences.
So would you be saying, if you were in his position, would you be saying, fine for the picture opportunity, but we're going to have the conversations beforehand? Or how would you navigate that if you're advising?
I would be saying I would want a picture opportunity, but I would want to do all of our conversations behind closed doors, because I don't think that there's any benefit for the Australian government in doing it any other way. Because the other thing too is I think the Albanese government will want to be reasonably robust itself. When it comes to dealing with Donald Trump, people keep talking about the things that we can offer in his transactional. The first thing we should offer is a free trade agreement, which we've got with the United States, which they've breached. So live up to the agreements which you've got. I don't think that Anthony Albanese should be offering up a whole lot, except the fact that we've always been a good partner. Our trade with the US, they're a net beneficiary from us.
The Trump presidency, though, we don't even know if he's going to get to Canada for the G7. You look at these pictures from Chicago now. We had New York and LA. The protests are unfolding. There obviously has been a long history of civil unrest and disturbances in the United States and violence for a long, long time. So it's not like any of this is unprecedented, but when you send in the National Guard, 700 Marines, there's a tinderbox element to it that has a lot of people worried.
And that's the point. You have to think long and hard as a democratic leader before you put the military on the streets to solve a domestic internal problem, and that's the real issue here. And the National Guard is one thing, but Marines are another. The National Guard will be shooting rubber bullets. The Marines are actually armed with real bullets, and so a mistake there is going to be huge. But yes, you're dead right. Look, when people talk about downtown LA, these are the things that I remember. 1968, the riots after Martin Luther King was killed. Los Angeles burned. And Rodney King, you'll remember those. I think the pictures after Rodney King was beaten, you'll find, and the people who beat him were set free, the police. That the riots after that, we saw an enormous amount of Los Angeles burned. The thing about the United States is it's an incredibly violent society. That guy I was talking before is a representative of a community where there's an enormous amount of violence from the government and from the community.
Yep, indeed. And there are a lot of guns.
There's a lot of guns.
A lot of guns in that society, that's for sure, as we see almost on a weekly, if not daily basis with the gun violence in that place.
Yeah, look, the thing I think we have to be clear about is that the United States President, Donald Trump, went to the election on a very strong immigration policy, so he has every right to do what he said he was going to do and to try and get some of these people sent back to the places where they came from. They are not legal migrants. He has a right to move them. But what we're seeing on the streets of Los Angeles at the moment is a big political play. It is Donald Trump versus Gavin Newsom, and Gavin Newsom will probably be the Democratic candidate at the next election. So both sides actually now will believe that they're benefiting from having this kind of fight. Their bases will both be up for this kind of fight. People on the streets will be a minority.
And their economy is underpinned, and has been for a long time, by illegal immigrants. Well, that's the other complication.
Well, you see stories now about them not being able to get people in restaurants, not being able to get servers in restaurants because really illegal immigration. We're talking about 11, that they know of, 11 million people. And there's every reason why a government would want to slow down that essentially, you know, this train of people across their borders. Australians wouldn't put up with it. And let's not forget, Australia's migration policy is extremely brutal in international terms. We are still sending people, although the Labor government doesn't talk about it much, to Nauru. You don't get into Australia very easily. The United States is trying to do the same thing, except it's got a land border.
Yeah, not as easy.